Today's recipe calls for some yeast. I'm going to show you how to make a super simple but yet really soft burger bun that's perfect for anything. So with that said, let's get started. The first thing we need to do is measure out 1 cup or 250 mils of very warm tap water. To ensure we have the correct warmth of H2O, it's best practice to temp the water. The temp we're shooting for is around 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit or 43 to 46 degrees Celsius. It's imperative you have the correct temp of water. The reason being is that yeast is a living organism that needs the perfect conditions to do its job. If the liquid is too cold, the yeast won't bloom and start the activation process. Alternatively, if the water is too hot, it will kill the yeast, which will prevent it from doing anything, and you'll have to start all over again. Yeast is basically the real-life Goldilocks. Once you have the water measured out, grab the bowl of a stand mixer. To the bowl, you'll add in 1 full package of rapid rise active dry yeast. The recipe calls for 1 pound or 453 grams of all-purpose flour. After the yeast, you'll add in a couple large spoonfuls of the flour. Use some of the flour from the 1 pound or 453 grams that we have already measured out. Following the addition of the flour, we'll add our warm water. Lightly whisk your face off to bring all 3 of these ingredients together. Once everything is well combined together, we'll let it hang out for about 4 to 5 minutes to let it do its thing. In the meantime, we can melt 3 tablespoons or 42 grams of unsalted butter. If you're melting the butter in the radioactive melter, also known as the microwave, you'll want to do it in 20-second intervals to prevent it from exploding into a large mess. Before we add it into the bowl, we'll let it slightly cool down a bit. After the 5 minutes is up, we'll check on our yeast mixture in the bowl. It should have some bubbly action going on, and it should look kind of foamy and also be slightly thicker. If it looks like this, then you know your yeast is alive and has been activated, so we can start making the buns, son. The next thing we'll add to the bowl is melted butter. Once we've added the butter, the next thing we'll add is 1 large room temperature egg. Next will be 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. The last thing we need to add is 1 1/4 teaspoons of coarse ground kosher salt. Following the salt, really whisk your face off to bring all of the ingredients into one. Once everything has become a cohesive unit, we need to add the remaining flour to the bowl. Grab your stand mixer and the dough hook. Start mixing all the goods on low speed. The dough formation process should take around 7 to 8 minutes. Unfortunately though, this is one of those visual things more than a time thing, so it's best to go off feel and sight. It'll go through a few stages before it's ready. The first stage is this clumpy mess of ingredients that starts to come together slightly. Notice the sides of the bowl are caked with dough. By the time we're done, it'll look completely different. The next stage is this formation of a shaggy, tacky, and sticky dough. If you grab onto it, the dough sticks to your little fingies, so we still have a little ways to go. I like mixing the dough on a medium speed. It's a bit faster and I think it's better for the machine. The next stage we have is the start of a good dough ball. It's still pretty sticky, but you'll notice the dough is just hanging off the hook and is forming into one cohesive unit. This means the gluten in the flour is starting to be activated, which will give us a good dough structure. Keep mixing until we hit the next formation of dough. The next stage the dough will hit is this slightly firmer dough ball that holds its shape really well, but is still sticky and bumpy looking. Also at this point, our dough is starting to become elastic, so if you pull on it, you can start stretching it out before it tears. You want to be able to stretch it out a decent amount before it rips on you. So that means we need to keep kneading the dough. If you keep playing with the dough like I am and it sticks to your hands, all you need to do is rub them together. With a few seconds, the dough will come off your hands. Do not try and wash it off. It won't work and you'll just make things way messier. A little fun fact, you can over knead your dough, which the end product will be heavier, tougher, really chewy, crumbly, and dry. It's all part of the learning process though, but you can still use it for croutons or breadcrumbs, but we're gonna avoid that today. The second to last stage before we're done is at this point when you can pull on the dough ball and stretch it pretty far without it ripping. You should be able to stretch it roughly 6 to 7 inches
inches. It doesn't have to be this exact amount, but this will give you an idea of what to look for. We have just a little more kneading to do since the dough is still sticky and slightly bumpy looking and isn't smooth in texture. We're really close though. Now the last and final stage is this one. The dough should be nice and super smooth looking. It should also feel really smooth and soft as well. When you touch it, the dough shouldn't stick to your hand like it did in the beginning. If you pull it, it has a nice stretch when pulled out. Very lightly flour your work surface and turn out your dough ball. Work the dough into a nice and tight ball. You can accomplish this by pulling the dough down and then folding underneath itself. Keep doing this until you get something that holds a nice tight shape. You can tell if you did a good job by pressing the dough ball with your little thingy and it immediately bounces back. That means we didn't overmix it. It's just right and the gluten has been activated. After you've done all that, grab a large holding device and lightly grease it with some oil. Toss the dough in and move the ball around to coat it with a little bit of the oil. This will help prevent it from sticking to anything while it proofs. Cover the bowl with a clean kitchen towel or with some plastic wrap. If you use wrap, just lightly place it atop of the bowl. We want to leave enough room for the dough to rise. Place the bowl in a warm area to help it proof a lot quicker. I like to put it in the oven that is off. Next, we'll set a timer and let our dough proof for 2 hours or until it doubles in size. At this point, your house should smell like yeasty bread, which is one of my favorite smells ever. What causes the smell is known as the fermentation process, meaning the active yeast is eating the sugar, which then turns it into alcohol to give it that distinct smell. During that process, gases are also released, which makes the dough rise. These two things are imperative to making great breads. While we are waiting for the dough to proof, we can prep some half-sheet trays. You can line them with some parchment paper and a small coating of nonstick spray, or you can also use a silicone mat. Once the timer goes off, we'll grab our proofed dough. You'll punch it down to release all the gases to flatten it back out. We'll make 8 burger buns. You can eye it out, but I wanted mine to all be the same size. So I got the weight of my entire dough ball and then divided that by 8 to get the weight that each bun should be. Each bun should weigh 3.6 ounces or 102 grams. Add or subtract dough until you hit the weight you need. There are a few ways to shaping burger buns. The first way is to take all your portioned out pieces and reshape each dough ball back into a tight little ball using the same method we used before with the larger dough ball. Once you've done that, we can start to form them one last time. Take your dough ball and simply flatten it out into a disc of dough. Do your best to ensure they're even all the way across. Put them on your lined baking sheet, giving each one a little space to proof. Now that you have all the buns on the tray, we'll lightly dust them with some flour and then we'll cover them with a clean kitchen towel to proof once more. Here are another 2 ways to shape burger buns. Take the dough again, make it back into a tight little ball by pulling the dough down and folding it back into itself. Once you do that, you'll notice the bottom isn't very smooth looking. We can fix that by putting the ugly side down on the work surface and using your 2 little baby fingers and pulling the dough ball towards yourself. Ensure the dough is making contact with the work surface while you pull on it. Do that a couple of times and rotate it 180 degrees after each pull. Keep doing that until you end up with a smooth bottom. The other way is to make this claw-looking thing with your hand and keep making circular motions with the dough until you get a smooth bottom. Place on the half-sheet tray, giving each piece enough room to proof. Once again, cover with a towel or some plastic wrap. We'll set another timer to allow the buns to proof. Should take about an hour or until they have doubled in size. When that hour mark is almost up, we'll preheat the oven box. Set the temp to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. Next, we'll make an egg wash for the buns. Grab a small container that has a small splash of water or milk and then add 1 large egg. Whisk your face off until everything becomes one. Now that the buns have doubled in size, it's time to get your Bob Ross on and paint the tops and sides of all the buns with the egg wash. You want to do this gently to ensure you don't deflate the buns. The egg wash will help give our buns that nice golden brown color. Once all the dough has been painted with the egg, it's finally time to throw them in the oven box. Put them on the middle rack for the best results. Bake the buns for 14 to 15 minutes or until they become a nice, rich, golden brown color. After the buzzer has gone off, we'll pull those golden pillows out of the heat. Let them hang out on the pan to completely cool all the way down before you cut into them. In the end, this is what your buns should look like. This one is the one that was rolled into a tight dough ball, and this other one is the flattened disc dough ball. They both came out looking really good. In my opinion, the rolled out one looks a little better. Use whatever method that works best for you. The only reason why I did two different ones is because my camera battery died, so I had no choice but to start all over again. So lucky me, and I guess lucky you. It's best practice to use a serrated blade to cut them in half. When you cut them, you should see very little or no crumb at all. If so, you know you didn't overwork the dough. Put the bun on its side to cut in half, or leave it laid flat to cut. If you're doing the laid flat version, just don't press too hard on the top so you don't squish your bun. Use the buns for burgers, chicken sandos, egg sandies, or for your favorite dish that calls for a bun. Whatever you decide to do, just enjoy.
Alright, now that our burger buns are done, let's give them the old taste route. So looking at them, they came out nice and aesthetically pleasing, and they look like a hamburger bun, of course. They got that nice little height to them. Then they're also nice and round. Then we get that sweet golden tan on them on the top and the bottom, and that definitely looks like a burger bun, like one of those store-bought ones. And they seem like they're gonna be nice and soft and tender, and they just look super good. And then you tear into it, and they got those little air holes all over, but it's nice and tight grouping, so it looks like it's gonna be soft as well. Then you lightly squeeze on one, and it bounces back like it's gonna be super soft. And yeah, let's give it a shot. These things came out so dang good. They're nice and light, they're airy, they're fluffy, they're chewy, and they're just super soft. Then that hard caramelization that we got on the top bun adds a different texture profile to help counterbalance all that softness. Flavor-wise, they're nice and rich and just delicious like a carbohydrate should be. Then we get a little bit of that caramelization flavor from the top bun and a little bit on the bottom, which adds another flavor profile. Overall, these things are just perfect. This recipe is super simple and is perfect for any novice baker out there. And if you want to get extra crazy with it, you can put some sesame seeds on top, or maybe some poppy seeds, or if you wanted to get real bougie with it, you can add whole pieces of dehydrated onion and garlic on top, which sounds super tasty. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. And I have a copious amount of burger buns and no burgers, so I need to figure out how to solve that issue. So we'll see on the next one. It just tastes like delicious, like whole pieces, you know, that are dry and dehydrated. You know what I'm saying? You know? Yeah, you know. My dang hell. Buns out, sun's out. No, sun's out, buns out. I think that's how it goes. Right? I don't know. Buns, son. I think I'm gonna give up my day job and just rhyme stuff with buns or sun. I don't know.